Okay, all right, let's get started. I hope you can hear me. If someone could just type in the chat that they can hear me. My name is Tom Smith. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning here at BC High. Um, and okay, so someone says they can hear me. All right, great. We're going to go through the course selection process for freshman year. I'm going to take questions at the end. And then, feel free to type some questions in the chat feature. I'm also recording this, and we will post this on our new students website, so you can watch it again later or share it with someone who couldn't be here or whatever it may be. All right. But again, my name is Tom Smith. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning. We're so excited to have you join us for next year. Let me see if I can get this queued up again. All right. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk about the course of studies for freshman year and the schedule. We'll talk about electives. There's only really 3 areas where your sons will have some variation in what they're going to take next year. So it's the language, the math, and the fine arts. We'll talk about the placement form, talk about some dates, and then I'll take some questions. All right. So the general course of studies for next year is the following. There are certain classes that everybody takes, and there's no variation. There's no leveling or anything. And that's Foundations of Faith. That's the religion class. English 1, Global History 1, and Biology 1. And I will say Health and Wellness 1. So those classes are, there's no leveling or anything. All the kids are in those classes together. And then for math, language, and fine art, that's where there might be a variation. Now, generally speaking, the freshmen take Algebra 1 or Geometry. There is an Algebra 1 Advanced, and there's a Geometry Honors. So there's a couple different levels for the freshmen for math. And for language, same thing. It could be level 1, level 2, or level 2 honors. All right. And then fine arts, there's obviously a lot of choices to be had for fine arts. But this is the general course outline for freshman year. Just to give you a glimpse of the next 3 years after that, basically what I wanted to show was as the students get older, there's more opportunities for electives and for more choice. So there are only 2 subjects for which the students have to take 4 years, and that's English and religion. Everything else is a 3-year commitment. So as they get older, as they progress through the curriculum, they have more and more choice as to what they're going to be taking. This is the typical schedule for the day. On Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, there are all the classes meet. There are 7 periods, 6 classes meet, and they're 42 minutes long. The day starts at 8:25. The day ends at 2:40. The students have lunch as part of 5th period on those days. So you can see on this slide here, 11:48 to 1:05 is a long time. That's 42 minutes for class plus a half an hour for lunch. So Monday, Tuesday, Friday, all their classes meet for 42 minutes. On Wednesday and Thursday, on Wednesday, we've got a late start. So this first class isn't until 9:05. The faculty have collaboration time in the morning. Of course, the school is open at the usual time. And certainly a lot of kids come in at the regular time and they just go to the library, go to the CAF, whatever it might be. But the first class isn't until 9:05. And those classes are long. Those are our long blocks. They're 65 to 75 minutes. And so the classes meet either on a Wednesday or Thursday. So every class meets 4 out of 5 days. So there's 3 classes on Wednesday, 4 classes on Wednesday and 3 on Thursday. There's also on Thursday something called the activity block or extra help period. It's a half an hour where there are a lot of clubs meet, or sometimes it's strictly for extra help. So kids go see their teachers for extra help if they need it. And then we also have something called a house meeting on Thursdays as well for 50 minutes. And so basically, really quickly about the house system, every student is placed into one of 12 houses. And so there are about 90 kids in each house, and it's from freshman year up through senior year. So it's sort of vertically aligned. There's a head of house, and that group will meet, every Thursday for 50 minutes as a whole group. And then you can see also on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, we have advisory. And so those are small group settings, maybe 10 to 12 kids. They meet with a faculty advisor for 10 minutes on those days. And again, those are mixed groups of freshmen all the way to seniors. Again, we're all in the same house, and they have those advisory periods. But this is the typical schedule. So I will say in the first semester, so this particular sample that I'm showing you now, the person has G block free. Now it won't always be G, and not every kid will have the same free period. But in this particular instance, it was G block. For first semester, they will have health and wellness in there. Health and wellness is not a full year course, but they'll have some version of health and wellness during those free periods. Not every day, but in that space, wherever their free period might be during the first semester. And then during the second semester, in that same space, they'll have their fine art class. We'll talk about fine arts in a minute. Let's talk about language first. All right, so there was a 3-year requirement to be in the same language in the high school, right? So if they're taking a language right now in middle school, that's great, but that doesn't count towards the 3-year requirement of the same language. So we offer Chinese, French, Latin, and Spanish. And if your son has prior experience in one of these 4 languages and would like to be placed in something other than level 1, we have a placement test June 3rd at 8:30. It's about 45 minutes, and that will help us determine what level he should be in. Should he be in level 1, level 2, or level 2 honors? But yeah, so these are the basic things. Now, if your son has never tried a language that he wants to take, he's never had any experience in Spanish, for example, but he wants to take Spanish, there's no need for him to take a placement test. He will just be put in Spanish 1. As well, at the same time, if he takes a language for the first time, doesn't like it, he can switch after freshman year. We don't have students switch classes middle of the year. So he would have to take that for the year, and then he can switch afterwards. But then he'd have to stay in that new language for 3 years because he needs that 3-year requirement of the same language. Again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds about this, but like we do have a classics track starting sophomore year where they can do Latin and Greek. So when they take 2 languages, but not freshman year, right? So that wouldn't be until sophomore year. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but that's a possibility a little bit later. About math. Most of our freshmen are in Algebra 1 or Geometry. I would say most of them are not, to be honest. And then some will be in Geometry, some will be in Geometry honors. There's very few who might be in Algebra 2 honors. But this is the course progression for mathematics, and they're 4 years, right? So I don't want to get too bogged down in everything to the right of the first column, but what I really wanted to emphasize on this slide was whether they start in Algebra 1 or Geometry, they still can get to Calculus AP. All right. So I think that's a concern for a lot of people. But no matter where they start as a freshman, they still can get to Calculus AP. The students are not locked into a specific track. Like if they take the placement test and they get placed into regular geometry or regular Algebra 1, that doesn't mean they can't take an honors class sophomore year, etc. Again, our course placements are based on, for math and language initially, are based on the placement test. And then once there are students and they, after freshman year, for example, their placement for the following year is based on how they did freshman year, et cetera. So again, they're not locked into a certain track based on the placement test. But anyway, so again, just like the language, if you want your son to be in something other than Algebra 1, then there's a placement test on June 3rd. It's the same time as the language test. They just take both, back to back or whatever. So if you wanted to take Algebra 1 as a freshman, then there's no need to take a placement test. Anybody who doesn't take the placement test is going to be put in Algebra 1. As a former math teacher myself, I will say that there is a need for a very strong foundation in Algebra 1 to succeed in the upper level math classes. As someone who taught, every math class that we offer, and I particularly taught a lot of the pre-calc honors, Calculus AP, Calculus BC, et cetera. I found that most of the kids understood the calculus concepts without a problem, but they would, not do well on the algebraic concepts. And so we do have a strong emphasis on the algebra concepts because that will set them up for success in the future. All right, but this is sort of the general progression for math. Again, placement test on June 3rd, and that will sort of determine what level he's placed in. Again, if you want him in Algebra 1, there's no need to take a placement test. We do have an Algebra 1 Advanced, which isn't on this. It's again, it's a student who is hasn't quite grasped every concept in algebra, but has a decent amount of it, but isn't ready for geometry yet. So there, there's a little leveling in the algebra one, kind of within the algebra one course. But again, that'll all be determined by the placement test. Fine arts. All right, so students need to accumulate 1 credit in fine arts by the end of their senior year. So all of our general courses, English, religion, math, science, social studies, etc., language, they're all, any full year course like that is worth 1 credit. But the fine arts courses are different. They vary in credit. Some of them are a quarter credit, some of them are half credit, some of them are 3/4 credit. And the credit that they are awarded is based on how often the class meets. So, our regular year-long courses, they meet, like I showed you on that schedule, 4 out of 5 days the whole year. A quarter credit class would meet, every other day for half the year. A half credit fine art class would meet every day or 4 out of 5 days for half the year. And the other half of the year, the student would have free period. A 3/4 credit class is usually a group that meets before or after school all year, like a band, choir, or et cetera, something like that. So there are many ways to accumulate that 1 credit in fine arts. We do not recommend students try to do all of that in 1 year. It's designed for people to do it, over the course of a couple of years at least. They have 4 years to do it. We obviously have a lot of kids that go above the 1 credit requirement for fine arts. If that's something they're passionate about and they're good at, there's a talent for it. Kids definitely go more than 1 credit. But for right now, in terms of choosing courses for next year for the fine arts, this is where there's a lot of choice, right? So for language and math, a lot of it's based on the placement tests, et cetera. The fine arts, there's really a lot of options, and I'm going to go over those options now. All right, so one option would be to participate in one of the bands or the choirs. So these meet outside of the school day, right? So like I said, our school day is 8:20 to 2:40. These groups meet either before that starts, before the school day, so like 7:30 in the morning, or they meet after school, right? So if you look at this slide here, concert band, chamber orchestra, jazz rock ensemble, jazz big band, guitar orchestra, they all meet after school the full year. Now, it's probably twice a week. It's not every day. There are some performances that go along with these groups. So if you look at this, the chamber orchestra, guitar orchestra, jazz big band, and jazz rock, those classes get half a credit. Again, it's all year, it's twice a week for the rehearsals, and then there's some performances. The concert band gets a little bit more credit, I think, because there's more performances. So that's a 0.75 credit thing. Again, those are after school. The concert choir and the liturgical musicians. The liturgical musicians are the group of students that perform and play at our all-school masses, right? So like once a month, we've got a liturgy where the whole school gathers in the gymnasium. And the liturgical choir, the liturgical musicians, they perform at those assemblies, those masses. The concert choir meets twice a week all year in the morning. There's actually a lot of performances for that group. That's why it's 0.75 credits. Liturgical musicians is a half credit. Again, those are before school. So if your son wants to consider those, that's awesome, but they do have to be able to get here by around 7:30 to participate in those groups. A common question that we get a lot is with the after-school groups, does that conflict with athletics or other co-curriculars that students want to participate in? The answer to that is sometimes yes. Sometimes there is a little conflict there, and other times there's workarounds, right? So, for example, like I know for the concert band, if the student participates in 2 out of the 3 seasons of the school year, right? Or there's 3 athletic seasons, 3 seasons in fall, winter, and spring. If they participate in the band for 2 out of those 3, then they'll get credit. So that gives them another season where they can maybe play a sport, for example. If they're, say they're a good basketball player, in the winter season they make the basketball team, but they won't do band that season. If they do band in the fall and spring, they still get credit for it. All right, so there are workarounds for some of these groups, but a lot of that is determined by the director of these groups. So that is something to consider, and I can share with you the contact information for the directors of those groups because they'll have more detail on how the whole process works from auditioning to those kind of like potential conflicts that might happen between after-school activities and these groups. You know, it's a little more difficult with some of the smaller groups, like the chamber orchestra, which is more of like the strings and stuff like that. That's a smaller group, so like they can't really afford to have kids kind of come into the group and come out of the group. Whereas the concert band is generally a bigger group, where if they lose a couple kids, you know, the band can still function as a band. They have the instruments they need, but the chamber orchestra is a little smaller, you know. So there's some variance there, but the directors of those groups would best be able to figure out, you know, what might work and what might not work. For the choirs and the liturgical musicians, there is no conflict because those meet in the morning, and all the athletics and stuff like that meet after school. All right, so that's one option, are those after school, before school groups. Another option are these foundations courses. So we've got two courses that are for students who are particularly talented in either the visual arts or the theater arts. So visual foundations is, you know, for kids who are passionate about drawing, painting, that sort of thing. And those classes are worth half a credit because they meet 4 out of 5 days like any other class, like English or whatever, but only for half the year. So for freshmen, it's for the second semester. But these are for students who have a particular, you know, talent or enthusiasm for the visual arts. It says there that email is sampled to Mr. McAllister. He's the director of the fine arts program. So we do want kids in there who have some ability. You know, it's not for someone who has never really tried any drawing or painting or anything like that. It's for kids who have like an interest. It says you're going to bring the sample to the placement test on June 4th. That should say June 3rd. The placement test is Saturday, June 3rd. Just make sure I'm clear on that. But you can also bring it to that, and he'll look at it and like, oh yeah, good to go. That's visual foundations would be great. Visual foundations course does set students up for further success down the road in fine arts. Like if a kid wanted to take ultimately at some point take AP art, AP studio design, and stuff like that, visual foundations is a great place to start. For theater foundations, it's very similar. Except there's no sort of like sample to provide or anything like that. But if your son is really passionate about theater, about putting on plays, you know, acting, that sort of thing, then theater foundations would be great. It's the same type of thing. Second semester, it meets 4 out of 5 days. They get half the credit for that. So if your son has an interest in being in a lot of the plays and stuff like that in his 4 years, then theater foundations would be a great place for him to be. And then the third option are these quarter credit electives. So these meet 2 times per week during second semester, basically every other day, just for second semester. These are all introductory courses. There's no prior experience necessary. So we've got some in visual art, like introduction to drawing and digital photography. We've got some in theater, so acting, stagecraft, and script writing. And then there's some musical performance ones. Again, no prior experience is necessary. Guitar ensemble, piano ensemble, hand chimes, and voice studio. So the guitar, just a note on the guitar and piano classes, your son would need access to a guitar or a piano at home during practice. So he doesn't need to know how to play those instruments yet. He could be a complete beginner, but he does need access to those at home. Voice studio is a voice class, a singing class, and then hand chimes is it's almost like percussion, you know, like a xylophone type thing, but it's it's a slightly different instrument than these hand chimes. It actually sounds pretty cool. And then we have some music classes that are not performance music classes. They're just sort of like studying music, playing around with music, making music, etc. So we've got bebop to hip hop and pop, a history of American music. We've got music production and history, understanding music through listening. So that's like listening to music and interpreting what's going on. And then music for media is a new one we're offering this year, which is like music for movies, music for video games, that kind of thing. So these are all quarter credit classes. Again, twice a week during the second semester. A lot of students will do, you know, in their 4 years at BC High, right? They might take a quarter credit class each year, and that's how they accumulate their 1 credit for, you know, by the time they graduate. So they might do sort of drawing freshman year, and then sophomore year, they may, you know what, I'm going to try a music class like music production history, and then junior year they'll do something else. They'll do stagecraft or something, you know. So some kids kind of vary what they're doing because they have a wide variety of interests. Other kids will do like, all right, I'm going to do a track that's sort of in intro to, or in visual art. So I'm freshman year, I'm going to take intro to drawing. And then sophomore year, maybe he'll take a half credit class like architectural drawing. We've got a class like that. We've got sculpture classes. All right. The prerequisites for those classes, though, are these quarter credit ones, or the visual foundations that I talked about on the last slide. Digital photography. We've got an advanced digital photography honors class, like later on. So like kids can kind of stick with a certain path as they accumulate their one credit of fine arts that they need. All right. Just for a visual representation in the schedule, so you and your son can determine what the impact is of these different options for fine arts has on their schedule, right? So this is first semester. This is the typical schedule. This is the same schedule I had up earlier. You can see the highlighted G blocks, right? Those are his free periods. During first semester, he's got a free block, or he can go to the library, go to the academic resource center, meet with the teacher if the teacher happens to be free as well, work on homework or whatever. I will say, first semester, there at some point in there, he will have health and wellness. Sometimes that is run as a 6-week course that meets every day for 6 weeks only. Sometimes it meets like, a few times for the semester, et cetera. But health and wellness is in there first semester. Second semester. So this is an example here where a student is taking a quarter credit fine art class, intro to drawing. You can see the red highlighted boxes. So that goes into his free block. They'll have 2 days instead of 4. They'll have 2 days of intro to drawing, second semester. That's what a quarter credit class does through the schedule. So on that Monday, for example, he doesn't have a free period. And that Wednesday, he doesn't have a free period. But he still has a free period on Tuesday and Friday. All right. If he takes a foundations class, again, just for second semester, he would have no free periods that semester because he's taking a half credit foundations class. It needs it needs 4 out of 5 days like any other class, only for second semester. And then if he does the choir or the band, which has morning or afternoon rehearsals, he'll have a free period all year long, except when he has that health and wellness class first semester. All right. So again, those are all just the things to think about when you're helping your son decide on what fine arts course to take. I will also say the course catalog is available on the new student's website. In the course catalog, you can see the much more detailed descriptions of each of the fine arts classes that we offer. So definitely take a look at that. It says in there, whether the class is for freshmen or not. So make sure when you look through the course catalog, you can find those courses in there. All right, so the placement form. And then, I put the website up here. So it's bchigh.edu/high school, -language-selection. So this is the placement form. All right. So on this placement form, it's due by April 28th. You submit it online. A few people have already submitted it, which is awesome. Thank you. But it kind of walks you through everything that you need to submit. So you click on this link, it'll take you to this page here. So first, obviously, is your name, first and last, t-shirt size. So again, once he gets assigned to a house, he'll be given a t-shirt with those house colors, the house name, etc. In orientation in August. So we need a t-shirt size, hometown, current school. That's just information for us. All right, and then we ask for the fine arts choice. So if your son wants to do one of these bands or choirs, right, they're all listed here. Just check one of them off if that's what he's doing. Or if he wants to do a foundations class, so that's at the top here, visual foundations or theater foundations, or check one of those. Or if he wants to do a quarter credit class, he has to give me his 4 choices, his top 4 choices. So this first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. And then these are drop downs. So the first one that's listed here is acting 1, just because that's alphabetically the first one. So these are drop downs. So he just has to select his first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. And then obviously we try to give every kid their top choice, but sometimes based on how many kids request a certain course, sometimes we can't run everything, right? So say only 2 kids pick the bebop to hip hop class for some reason. We're not going to offer that class for 2 kids, right? So then I have to go to those 2 kids and get their second choice and try to put them in that class. So on the placement form, that's what we're asking for here. Again, they really shouldn't be choosing things in all 3 categories. Like they shouldn't be choosing a choir and band. They don't have to do one of those, but they shouldn't be choosing those and a foundations class and a quarter credit class. They won't be able to do all that. All right, so they should really only be operating in one of those three sort of buckets, right? The before and after school groups, the foundations courses, or the quarterback classes. All right. Language choice. So again, this is where we want your sons to rank their first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth choice for language. Again, most kids are going to get their top choice. All right. But we do like to see how they would rank their choices in the event that I can't give them their top choice because of a scheduling issue or whatever it might be. All right. And then you got to tell us whether or not he's going to come take the placement test on June 3rd. So basically, this is just a check, yes or no. Yes, I'm coming in for the French test and the math test. We'll just check both of those things. And he'll just take them back to back on that day. Again, if you're okay with him, if the best place for him, you already know, is level 1 in the language that he wants in Algebra 1, then he does not need to come in for a placement test. We just leave these blank and then just hit submit. All right, and that'll go to me, and then we can get everything situated for him. Yeah, so complete this form online. If you have questions, we will contact you. Again, that's by April 28th. This is my name here, Tom Smith, Dean of Teaching and Learning, and my email address is here, tsmith@bci.edu. That's my email address if you want to ask me any questions about the form. But you got some time for that, April 28th. Couple other things, information. This is that website, the new students website here. It's bci.edu/enrollment/new students. You click grade 9, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff on there. Hopefully you've checked it out. The essentials guide is there, which has the preliminary calendar for the school year, a checklist of things that have to get done, some technology information, the help forms, placement test information. The course catalog is on the website. Information on orientation, which is June 12th or 13th. You're not going to go to both of those. And then there's another orientation in August, right before the school year. A little bit about technology. There's probably going to be another webinar about technology. But we are a sort of BYOD school, bring your own device. So most kids have either a laptop or an iPad. Those are the most popular things. And here are just a couple requirements for those things. So it's got to have at least 120 gigs of storage. If he does have a tablet or an iPad, make sure it's not the cellular one where he's on like the AT&T network or Verizon network. We need it to be the Wi-Fi one where to use it, he has to connect to Wi-Fi. We want our students on our Wi-Fi network when they're here because we have the ability to sort of filter different types of things. If using an older iPad, nothing more than 2 years old, because obviously, as you know, things get updated frequently on the back products. And then at a certain point, the older ones are not compatible with some of the things that the teachers ask them to do. Again, most people have a laptop or an iPad. And not to say that you couldn't get like a Chromebook or something, but just be aware that we are not as equipped to troubleshoot things or other devices. Again, not that we say they can't have a Chromebook or something. Or other kind of tablet, but we're just more equipped to help if there's an issue, if it's a Mac, or if there's a laptop. We do have some kids with PC laptops. Anyway, so that's just a bit about technology. A note about summer programs. We've got a ton of summer stuff going on, whether they're warm-up classes to get ready for certain subjects. We've got some specialty clinics, like some coding stuff, robotics type stuff, tons of sports camps. I used to coach the basketball sports camp in the summer. It's awesome. It's a great way for kids to meet other kids before their freshman year. So definitely check that out. The website's down there. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. But there's a lot going on here over the summer. It's terrific. Again, just to recap, upcoming dates. April 28th, that language, fine arts, math placement form is due. In early May sometime, you'll get access to our student information system. It's called MyBCI. So you'll be emailed password, username and password instructions, etc. Sometime in early May. June 3rd is that placement test at 8:30. June 12th or 13th is the orientation. You purchased a T-Pass if your son's going to be riding the T to school anytime between July 5th and August 18th. And then also in July and August, we have to finalize the dates. We will have device setup sessions, which would be awesome for you. A chance for you to come in with your son with the device that he will be using on campus to get it set up. So that's like getting on the Wi-Fi, getting his email set up, getting, his books that he needs, the electronic ones especially. So all that stuff can be happened with an appointment over the summer before the school year. Again, we'll have more information about that as it comes out. All right, let me take some questions. I just want to, I see some questions in here already. I'm going to admit anybody else who may have been left out. All right, so let me look at some questions here. All right. Okay, question about, do we need to request the language placement test ourselves, or the school send a general email out to students to register? So we'll know if your son is taking the placement test with that placement form, right? If we go to on the placement form right here, part of the placement form is whether or not he's going to come to take a language test or a math test. So when you submit this form, just check off, all right, he wants to do the Spanish test and the math test. So check both those boxes and that's it. Then we'll know he's coming. Question, if the student is already taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade and has a B or better, will he automatically qualify to take geometry or BCI, or does he still need to take the placement test? Yeah, he needs to take the placement test. If he wants to take anything other than Algebra 1, he needs to take the placement test. And in that essentials guide that is posted on the website, there's information about the types of things that are going to be on that math placement test. Not that it's not designed for kids to study for or prepare for. It's supposed to be a diagnostic test. Like, what does he know? Like, so, but feel free to take a look at that. There's a brief paragraph about, what to expect on there, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, if he wants anything other than Algebra 1, he does have to take the placement test. Again, part of that, just a little more on that, just the rationale. Every school does things a little differently, right? A lot of folks, might say, "Oh, Algebra 1 is Algebra 1, no matter where you are." And for a lot of topics within Algebra 1, that might be true, but I know that a lot of times our Algebra 1 curriculum might be a little bit different than some of the schools our boys are coming from. So that's why we have everybody take that placement test. Because again, as a math teacher, a former math teacher myself, having that strong foundation in Algebra 1 is really important for them to have future success here. So anyway, that's sort of part of the rationale there, where we have everybody take the placement test if they want something other than Algebra 1. All right, question about technology. What would I say would be the preferable device? I mean, again, like not thinking about price and stuff like that. There's a part of me that thinks that the laptop is better than an iPad. I know they're more expensive, so that's a huge consideration, right? It's just in terms of like how long he might use it. I mean, the iPad. Okay, I'll put it this way: like a lot of our juniors and seniors, I think more of our juniors and seniors are on laptops than iPads. And maybe that's because they decided to buy one in the second half of high school because then they might use it freshman year of college as well. I just find the laptops to be more of a productivity device. The iPad feels to me more a little bit like you can do a lot of productive things on the iPad. A lot of educational things can be done on the iPad. Our teachers are great at finding ways to maximize the iPad. And there are actually some things that are better on the iPad than laptop, but I find the iPads in our experience to be a little more legwork in terms of making sure that it's used as a productivity device and not, Netflix and YouTube and everything else. So that's just my 2 cents. I think we will have like another sort of webinar information session about technology. Yeah, question here: will they bring the laptop, iPad to class again? Yeah, exactly. They need it every day. Our kids bring in their devices every day. Sometimes during class, depending on the subject, depending on the teacher, they might use it during class, right? Other times, they get to class, they don't use it, but then like their textbook is on the laptop. So once they're, once the lesson is over or whatever, and there's work to be done, a lot of times they need their device to access the textbook or whatever it might be. So yeah, they do need their devices every day. Okay, hang on. So, all right, so Mac based, not PC. So, all right, this is a very personal question. I am a PC guy. I'm on a PC right now, right? So I like the PCs, but I would say most of our kids are on Macs, and I think most of our teachers are on Macs. again, I think our IT group, our IT staff and stuff, they're probably best experienced in troubleshooting Macs. Not that they can't troubleshoot PCs, but as someone who uses Excel a lot and stuff like that, I just find Mac or PCs to be better for me. So again, I would say more popular is probably Mac, but you know, I like a PC personally. So Canvas LMS is better user experience on laptop than that. But yes, so this might be a current a person who's got some experience. That is true. We have a learning management system called Canvas that we use here at BC High. That's where all sort of academic stuff happens in terms of like for teachers to post content, to assign homework, for students to submit homework. That's where like the live gradebook is, all that stuff. It's much better on a browser than it is on the app. Like there's a Canvas app that you can get on your phone or a lap or an iPad. It's not super reliable. It's way better on a browser. So like every time that a person has an issue with Canvas and they're using the app, I just say, hey, can you just use the browser? Like it's just way better. So I will say that that's good. That's a good tip. Yeah, any advice on choosing the MacBook Pro or MacBook Air? I mean, again, I'm not super well versed in like the pricing points and all that stuff, but you know, if it's something if you think it only will last, you know, 3 to 4 years, the Air is probably the way to go. But if it's intended to last through high school and college, then maybe you spend. Again, I don't know. I have 2 kids. They're both so little right now, and I'm not at this mental game yet. Trying to plan for college as well. But you know, most of our kids probably have the Air. I would say. I don't think the Pro would be necessary. Again, that's my sense from being with our students every day is that most of them have the Air. So that's probably what I would recommend. Again, I'm not a user of those 2 devices, but so I just from what I see, I think the Air is probably fine. But anyway, all right. So I don't know if there are any more questions. Again, we did record this. We will post this on the new student website. I'm going to type my email address in the chat in case anyone has any like more specific questions. You know, that might not pertain to like everybody, but they're, you know, I'll be happy to answer them as best as I can. If I can't answer them, I will direct you to the person who can. Actually, I'll type in a couple of things. John Bean, he's our band director. I'm going to type that in here. Here's his name and email address for the concert band, the jazz bands, and stuff like that. And then our orchestra director is James Hazelwood Dale. He's more of the orchestra guy, and so he is at. Hang on a second. Let me get his email. Yeah, let me just confirm that that's his email. Let's see here. It's got a hyphenated last name, so I'm going to make sure that double check the hyphen isn't in there. Email address. It's not. Yeah, so I have it. All right. So he's the orchestra director. So if you have like really specific questions about participation in the bands or the orchestra that meet after school, those are your guys. They would be the best folks to answer those questions. If there's any other questions, you know, feel free to type them in now. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. We're going to run this again. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow, and then we'll record that as well and post it. And then we'll do another one like April 24th, I think. So again, there's multiple opportunities to hear this presentation and watch the recording again. And again, we'll do a couple more of these just so people get their questions answered. All right. I don't see anybody else chat or typing right now. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. I hope this was at least somewhat helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions. And again, we're super excited for you and your sons to join the BCI family. I think he's going to have a great experience, transformative experience. And yeah, we're just fired up for him. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.